Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the cheap hobby edition of More with Less. And there's two things about hobbies that I want to speak to you about. One is, don't have a lot of them. We have limited time, and if you have invested in a lot of hobbies, chances are you're not going to be able to really enjoy and become proficient at and have the most fruitful experiences with if you have so many that you can't really get the biggest benefit out of the hobbies you have, and also inexpensive. I have owned boats in the past, and I own a boat in Texas. I'm co-owner with another gentleman, and so we split costs. But they always say that a boat is a hole in the water through which you pour money, or sometimes they say boat means bring out another 1,000. That's going to cost money. And they do. They cost money, and I have to definitely measure the recreational value in having a boat. But when I'm up here in the Midwest, I did have a Lund boat. I don't have it anymore. I invested in 2012 into my first kayak, and I have enjoyed kayaking ever since. Now, that was a sit-in kayak. They didn't have the sit on top of kayaks. But what was wonderful about it is I could easily haul it anywhere. It was 35 pounds. And the ones I use today, as I've gotten older, they're the sit on top of kayaks. They're easier to get into. I've got the ones that have got the better backing, the seat, the webbed seat. And it makes it a lot easier on my body when I do float. But this kayaks that I have right here with me, I bought for about $250 and then $350 on the rack. I bought them at the end of the season. Another important note to take is buy the gear that you want, especially if you've got to buy it new. Buy it at the end of the season. That's when the sales go on, and enjoy it for many, many years to come. So I purchased these kayaks. I float the rivers nearby, and it also brings me to one of my other cheap hobbies. And some people say it's not a cheap hobby because there is expensive gear, but I love to fish. And I buy my license every year, and I fish spring, summer, and fall here in the Midwest. My gear is always good, but I don't spend a lot for my gear. I buy my Okuma reels off of eBay, and then I use what's called a Falcon HD as my rods. I don't have cheap gear. I have good gear that's reliable. But once I have the investment, I use it, I float the rivers, I fish, I float some of the local lakes and ponds, I fish, and it is good for my body, it's good for my mind, it's good for my soul, and I don't have to worry about how many times am I going to get that thing out and use it in order to pay for my investment. If I owned a yacht, obviously, if I was a multimillionaire and I could afford to own a yacht, I don't know if I would, because you use it a few times during the year, you've got a $250,000 investment, and you've got a lot of maintenance, you've got a lot of insurance costs, you've got a lot of upkeep. So I just like to have recreational gear and recreational hobbies that are relatively inexpensive. The other thing that I like to do when I'm on the water is I like to take my camera gear and I like to do wildlife photography. And some people say, well, that's not a cheap hobby. Well, the nice thing about my photography hobby is that my gear is for my business. And I do have to have really good gear. My gear is not cheap, but I take my gear with me on some of my trips down the river to take wildlife photographs. And it's just, again, a great recreational activity for me. I've got the investment for my business, and it just adds to the enjoyment of being able to kayak. So this is a short More with Less about your hobbies. Even if you change hobbies every year or two, my encouragement, sell the gear that you have. Don't put it in the closet. Don't stack it in the garage. How many times have we gone into other people's garages and they've got $1,000 bikes hanging from their ceiling? And you ask, when's the last time you were on them? And they say, well, 7 years ago. But, you know, this might be the summer. Well, my thought is, when you realize you're not using something, sell it while the value is still at least partially there, And if you return to it, find a deal on Facebook Marketplace or someplace like that, and then you can re-engage that hobby. Hobbies can be a burden if you've got so many of them that you feel guilty for not doing them, and they can also be very expensive. And if you want to live a simpler life, you want to have a good time, and you want to have something that is a part of your life that's great recreationally and also benefits your health, I recommend kayaking or other simple hobbies. Other people choose to do biking, and I think it's worthwhile to spend $1,000 on a bike if you're going to use it and enjoy it. But don't have too many hobbies. Do the ones that you enjoy. Sell the gear that you're not using, and then move on. Have a great time, and thanks for joining me in this cheap hobby version of More with Less.